Good evening, Saturday night. Jimmy here in Chicago. Got a great story for you tonight. I'm actually going to have to do it in two parts. Part one, and then I'll follow up with a part two. But before I head out tonight, I want to dedicate tonight's story to all the brave men that served, fought, and gave their lives in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and all of our wars. We owe it to you, all the brave men, especially the ones that lost their lives. Now, this man here needs no introduction. Probably one of the most popular made men of the Chicago outfit, Tony Spilotro. Born in 1938, grew up right there in the same neighborhood that I live in now, Grandin, Ogden. His parents came from Bari, Italy. I think he had 4 or 5 other siblings. And his mom and dad opened up an Italian restaurant right there in the patch on Grandin, Ogden. And back in the day, men like Tony Accardo, Gus Alex, Milwaukee Phil, Jake Guzak, and others all used to hang out at Patsby's restaurant. Now, this guy had a couple nicknames. Bill Romer, FBI agent, used to call him Pissant or the Ant. Tony Spilotro hated that nickname. But some of the guys in his inner circle, made members of Chicago outfit, some of the associates would just call him the little guy. When Mikey Marcello would visit his brother Jimmy Marcello in prison, they would talk in code. And when they talked about the Spilotro brothers, they would refer to them as the Chivagos, just like the TV show. When Frank Calabrese and Nick Calabrese talked about the Spilotros, they would refer to them as 1 and 2. And when they talked about the murder, they would talk about that in code as IT. IT. Here's a booking mugshot of Tony Spilotro in 1979. And rather than go to college or become a professional like some of his brothers, he decided to follow up in the footsteps of some of the guys he admired, guys like Milwaukee Phil, Joey Upa, Tony Accardo, Joe Lombardo. Started out as a small thief, a burglar, and then he eventually started doing some heavy work for the outfit. One of the first piece of work that he did, he was allegedly involved in what they call the M&M murders. This was 2 Irish hoodlums, Jimmy Miraglia and Billy McCarthy. And these guys really fucked up. They killed 2 brothers in Elmwood Park. And most of us know Elmwood Park is an old Italian neighborhood, a patch where a lot of the mob guys grew up. What they didn't know was the father of the 2 brothers they killed was good friends with Tony Accardo. As we all know from history, if anybody disrespects or does anything wrong to Tony Accardo, they're going to be dealt with. Tony Spilotro and a few other guys got a hold of these 2 guys and started torturing them, beating them. They put his head in a vice, just like in the movie Casino, put pressure on the vice and actually popped out the guy's eyes, and then they ended up slitting both of their throats. A couple days later, both of these guys, Miraglia and McCarthy, were found in the trunk of a car. Very similar to what happened when they robbed Tony Accardo's friend, the jeweler, Mr. Livingston. And not only did the crew have to return the valuable jewels and gems they stole, but the ones that broke into Tony Accardo's house were brutally tortured and killed. Fast forward, you got Mad Sam DeStefano. This was one of Tony Spilotro's mentors. This guy was a very sick, evil man, similar to maybe like somebody in the Gambino family, like a Roy DeMeo or a Tommy Karate. He actually got off torturing people. This monster here would abuse his wife. He would abuse his brother. He would make a spectacle out of himself in court. He was killing a lot of people he wasn't supposed to be killing without the outfit's approval, drawing a lot of heat from the FBI in the media. Outfit bosses had enough of his bullshit. They had his own brother, Mario DeStefano, and Tony Spilotro trick him. They told him that they found Leo Foreman, an informant that they were looking for. They met in the garage at his home in Galewood. Galewood is like a suburb of northwest Chicago, kind of like on the outskirts where a lot of cops, firemen, and city workers live. Tony Spilotro and his brother Mario DeStefano shotgun blasted Mad Sam to death, killing him, leaving him right there on the garage floor, and they actually blew off his arm. But this is an actual crime scene photo of Mad Sam DeStefano, and I'll never forget during the Mike Sarno trial, one of the defendants, World War II Navy hero Samuel Bopendenzo, I think this guy was like in his 80s at the time, he was on tape bragging about the bomb that he made that the crew used to blow up a video gaming competitor. He was talking about Tony Arcardo, how he made millions of dollars in the rackets. And he was also telling stories about Mad Sam DeStefano. He said that one day he saw him putting body parts into a meat grinder, and he was laughing about it. One day he was over there, and he said, "Come here, Dago, you want to see something?" He took Samuel downstairs, and Samuel saw with his own eyes a guy being brutally tortured by Mad Sam DeStefano. But this was another victim of Tony Spilotro. I'm not sure how many people Tony Spilotro killed. My guess, he was probably involved in at least 10 to 25 hits, but I'm not sure. And I know he was the prime suspect in a lot of other unsolved murders. But how many killings do you think Tony Spilotro participated in? Here's one I know for sure he was involved in. Going back to 1974, they killed Danny Seifert. Danny Seifert was a businessman. He was friends and business partners with Tony Spilotro, Joe Lombardo, Milwaukee Phil, and others. And the motive, the reason they had to kill Danny Seifert was huge. He was about to blow the lid wide open on the Central Teamsters Pension Fund. Prosecutor Mitch Mars said that back then in the 70s, it was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They referred to it as the mob's piggy bank, their golden goose. The Chicago outfit used that money to build mobbed up hotels and casinos in Vegas. They also used that money to pay off some of their defense lawyers, especially during the strawman case. They used some of that money to pay off judges, crooked cops, politicians. They used that money to open up legitimate companies like construction companies, buy bricks, buy property, open up restaurants, nightclubs, bars, and cafes. Danny Seifert, like Hoffa, was warned repeatedly to back down, but he was stubborn. He was not afraid of these guys. He would not listen. He would not back down. So one day, two masked gunmen, one of them allegedly Joey Lombardo, held his wife and their younger son Joey in an office at gunpoint. He told them to be quiet. This is a stick-up. And the other masked gunman was Frankie Schweiss. He repeatedly was cracking Danny Seifert in the head, gun-butting him. He tried to handcuff him. Danny Seifert was strong enough. He broke free. Danny Seifert's running out of the office for his life. When he gets outside, he's met by Joey Hansen and Tony Spilotro, where he was shotgun blasted to death. This is an actual photo a crime scene photo that the government showed as part of evidence because Joe Lombardo was one of the alleged mass gunmen. Joey was a defendant at the family secret trial. John Feccarata was the wheelman. He told Nick Calabrese on the men that were involved in killing Danny Seifert. And I forget, it was either Joey Hansen pulled the trigger or was Tony Spilotro. But Tony Spilotro was definitely part of the hit team that killed this man. Now here we got Chicago outfit heavyweight Marshall Cofano. He was the prime suspect when they murdered Dick Kane right there at Rosie's Snack Shop on Grand and May, near the club, near the bakery. He was the first man sent out to Vegas to look after the skim, and he was kind of like the mob's enforcer out there. Now, back in the mid-'60s, right at the start of the Vietnam War, he got convicted for extorting $60,000 from a rich oil man, Ray Ryan. He did like 12 years in prison, got out. The oil executive offered him $1 million. Fast forward, the oil man ended up getting killed. Marshall Cofano took his money, ended up killing him anyways. He was the prime suspect. But I bring him up because he was the first guy from the Chicago outfit to go out there and take care of the skim and provide the muscle to make sure that nobody fucked with the mob's money they were skimming from the 4 Las Vegas casinos. Now, I show this photo here. These are all the heavyweights, all your bosses in the Chicago outfit back in the heyday. But don't let these men fool you. They all look like they could be your uncle, your father, your grandfather. But these men at this time were some of the richest, most powerful, most dangerous, connected men in America. We'll go through the photo real quick. Boss Chicago outfit at the time was Joey Upa. He's the one that gave the order to kill the Spilotros right before he went to prison during the Strawman case. He told Joe Ferriola and Sam Carlisi, I want them both knocked down, 1 and 2. I don't care how you do it, just do it. But prior to that, he actually liked both Spilotro brothers and trusted them. Then next to him, you got Dominic DeBella, Tony Accardo's brother. He was dying. He had some health issues. Joe Lombardo said this was kind of like a going away party for Dominic DeBella because he was dying. Joey referred to him as, you see how skinny he was. Next to him, you got boss of the Rush Street, the Northside crew. You got Vince Solano. Next to him, boss of Chicago Heights crew. You got Al Pilato. Then you got the underboss, Jack Cerrone, Joe Lombardo, the guy in the far back who Joey referred to as the fat guy. You got Jimmy Turk Torello. My dad was in the Marine Corps with him, and my dad told me he was by far the toughest Marine. In front of him, you got little Caesar DeVarco. He eventually took over the Rush Street Rackets, and him and Joey Lombardo never really got along. They had a major beef, several sit-downs. Joey won most of the sit-downs, not all of them. And then in front of him, you got mob boss, Northwest Suburbs, James Black Amato. And then in front, Consigliere at the time, but the overall boss, Tony Accardo. But Tony Accardo, Consigliere at the time, Joey Upa, underboss, Jack Cerrone, and newly boss, street boss of the Grand Army crew. These men all liked the Spilotros and had a say-so when they made the decision to send Tony Spilotro out there to replace Marshall Cofano. Same with James Turk Torello, but unfortunately, he was an upcoming boss, but he died of health issues. But this photo here is the Last Supper photo, and you're looking at some of the most powerful men in the country. But they liked, trusted, and put Tony Spilotro in that position. At the time, it seemed like a great idea. Years later, they realized it was a huge mistake. Now, here's one of Tony Spilotro's home in Vegas. And just imagine a guy like Tony Spilotro, Probably never even left the Grandin Ogden neighborhood. Moves out to Vegas, gets away from all the drama and problems he was in Chicago. When he gets out to Vegas, he realizes, he knows Joe Lombardo's in prison for bribing a Nevada senator. Jack Cerrone, Angel LeBoule, Joy Upa are all in the can for strawman. Nobody was there to supervise him. It was wide open, kind of like a virgin territory. Rather than keep his head down, keep low, keep a low profile, not piss off any of the Metro cops or the agents, Tony Spilotro did the exact opposite. Now here, Stardust, this is one of the 4 mobbed up hotel casinos where the skimming took place. Tony Spilotro's only job was to make sure nobody fucked with the mob skim and nobody tried to muscle in on Lefty. All he had to do was keep his head down like Tony Accardo told him. But just like in the movie Casino, they fucked it all up. They had it all. They had all the money. They had all the power. They had access to all the people in Hollywood. They had all the women. But ended up fucking everything up. Now, getting back to the skim, they skimmed millions of dollars in all kinds of different ways from the 4 casinos back to Chicago. And the Chicago outfit had some of their family members, some of their friends, some of their acquaintances. They would fly them out to Vegas, give them the full red carpet VIP treatment. They would comp them hotel room, comp them shows. And the shows back then could be Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, high-end acts. They would comp their dinners, comp their drinks. Some of them were even given markers to gamble with. So family, friends of Chicago outfit guys would go to Vegas on vacation, have everything paid, and all they had to do was bring back bags of cash and make sure that it got back to the outfit bosses. I'm going to do a show on all the carriers, some of the carriers that were involved in bringing the skim money back to Chicago. They even used old ladies, senior citizens would fly out to Vegas. They'd roll out the red carpet for them, give them the full VIP treatment. And some of these old women would come back with these big army duffel bags stuffed with cash. Their driver would meet them at Midway or at O'Hare Airport, load the duffel bags of cash into the car, drop the old ladies off, and then bring bags of cash to the outfit bosses. That was just one way the Chicago outfit brought back cash from the casinos. They had a lot of creative, unique ways where they smuggled back the money, and we'll do a show on that. Now here, this is one of the dirtiest, oldest, nastiest hotel casinos in Vegas, the Circus Circus. They're eventually going to level this place, knock it down, and build a new one. But back in the day, this was a pretty popular place. Tony Spilotro and his wife Nancy had somewhat of a legitimate souvenir shop inside Circus Circus. They named it after his wife Nancy. But this place was really a front for all the stolen goods that Tony Spilotro's crew were stealing. They were using the store to fence all their stolen properties. Now here's a great photo of Tony Spilotro, a young Tony Spilotro. This is probably in the 70s, maybe early 80s. You can see how tanned he is. He's got the Versace shirt. He's with the beautiful Las Vegas dancer, Jerry. As we all know, these two had an affair. She was married to Lefty. One of the rules in the Chicago mob and the La Cosa Nostra is you cannot fuck around with somebody's wife. He obviously was having an affair with him. He knew that was a big no-no. It got back to some of the bosses of Chicago outfit that he was sleeping with the Jew's wife, meaning Lefty's wife. And according to Frank Calabrese and Nick Calabrese, according to their testimony at the Family Secret Trial, that was one of the reasons they killed Tony Spilotro. The fact that Not only were things getting out of hand, not only was the skim money becoming less and less, not only was he involved in drugs, not only was he involved in drug dealing, but he was killing people without approval, acting like a cowboy out there. And eventually, Chicago outfit bosses had enough. But Tony Spilotro was definitely a ladies' man, and this is one of many of his goombas. Now, most of us know they actually had a black book in Las Vegas, and if your name was in this book, you were not allowed in any hotel casino in Vegas. Tony Spilotro was probably in the top 10 on that list, and when he found out, he was livid. He threatened to kill some of the Nevada officials. He threatened to kill some of the people that put him in the black book, and that was a bad look for Chicago Alpha because their number one man out there that was supposed to be in charge of things wasn't even allowed in any of the casinos. This was just the start of the fall of Tony Spilotro and the Chicago outfit. There's several other names in that book. I'd like to get a list of that book, and we'll do a little short story on there. But if any of my viewers, any of you guys out there know other made members of Chicago outfit or New York guys or Philly guys, any mafia guys, please let me know who's in this book. I'd like to do a story on that. But Tony Spilotro was definitely blackballed in all the hotel casinos in Vegas. Now, Tony Spilotro made the critical mistake shortly after he moved out to Vegas. He invited all of his career criminal friends from Chicago, guys from Cicero, Oak Park, Berwyn. These clowns probably never even left their neighborhoods. So they get away from all the trouble they were in and all the problems and ops they had in Chicago. They move out to beautiful Las Vegas. It's freaking paradise. Palm trees, women, sunshine, gambling, all the action. It was virgin territory for this crew. These guys were robbing tourists, guests of the casinos, robbing all their jewelry, all their cash. They kind of were somewhat organized. They were also robbing businesses, restaurants, and extorting hotel casino employees. A lot of the pit bosses, hotel casino managers, bartenders, waitresses, card dealers, roulette dealers were either gambling with the outfit or borrowing money from these guys or buying drugs. These guys were involved in all kinds of illegal activity that was bringing a lot of heat to Tony Spilotro and the Chicago outfit. These guys, one of their guys, Sal Romano, got pinched, guy from Chicago. He decided to flip and cooperate. They were going to do a huge score at Bertha's high-end store. And when they broke in, the feds were there. They raided. They all got busted. As we all know, Frank Collada here was a childhood friend of Tony Spilotro's, kind of like Spilotro's right-hand man. He was a real character. He was in the movie Casino. He claimed he never wanted to be a made member of the outfit, but he definitely was an associate. Behind him, you got Lurch. This guy was a very serious, sick killer. You had Sereno there. But all these guys were burglars and thieves from Chicago, came out to Las Vegas, and would do a lot of scores for Tony Spilotro. They called him the hole-in-the-wall gang. Now, one thing Tony Spilotro, a lot of people don't know that he was a good family man. He had a beautiful wife there. You could see a young Tony Spilotro. He was a good father. That's his little son there. Just like in the movie Casino, he was involved in kids' baseball. He actually cooked a good breakfast and was somewhat of a role model. He definitely did not want his son following his dad's footsteps. But I showed this photo just to show a young, handsome Tony Spilotro with his beautiful wife, Nancy. She kind of looks like a movie star, and their son. Tony Spilotro had a good side to him as well. Now, another no-no of the Chicago outfit was anything to do with drugs, dealing drugs, being high on drugs. It was quite obvious Tony Spilotro was involved in dealing narcotics, as well as Frank Collada and the rest of the crew. Not only were these guys selling drugs out west, but they were also getting high on coke doing unsanctioned hits. So imagine going on a major score flying high on cocaine. That's messy. That's going to get you killed or pinched. But that's what these guys were up to. Word got back to Chicago outfit bosses that Tony Spilotro, Frankie Collada, and the crew were now involved in drug dealing. This is the second reason why Spilotro was killed. We also know that Tony Spilotro had a couple associates in dealings with a very powerful motorcycle gang out west, very similar to Mike Sarno. Sarno, at the Sarno trial, what was interesting about that trial, they showed the Chicago Outfits association with the outlaw motorcycle gang. High-ranking outlaw guy Mark Polkman was kind of like Sarno's right-hand man. Tony Spilotro would give hits out to some of the motorcycle gangs to carry out. He would also buy and sell drugs through these guys and sell some of his fence goods. But the motorcycle gang out west was definitely in cahoots with Tony Spilotro and the Hole in the Wall gang. Now, they also had LA Mafia out there that was pretty much under the Chicago Outfit's control. As we all know, the Chicago Outfit just didn't control Chicago. They controlled everything west of the Mississippi. They had way more political police power than any New York, Philly, or Detroit family. But Tony Spilotro had associates in the LA mob that he would reach out to when he needed certain pieces of work done out west, or if some of these guys needed favors done in Nevada, they went right to Tony Spilotro. This is part one of Tony the Ant Spilotro. If you like my Chicago mob trial stories, please hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends, and stick around. I'm going to drop part two. Ciao.